T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome, everybody. You get the Horn Show. Tad and Jeff here. Big sports show tonight. Lots to talk about. Lots of fun to be had. And let's, look, this is going to be a fun, and this is a special day for you. This particular episode is a very special episode.
It's all about me. Yeah. It's all about me tonight.
This is a special episode. This is one where we're going to talk about something that you have been leading the prayer group of people nationwide and probably worldwide in some cases of people begging for this change. And finally, the change has happened. And so it is now official. The Pittsburgh Steelers have fired offensive coordinator Matt Canada.
It's time to pull out the old Yamakaze 12-year. I'm going to take a little pour.
Nice.
Sip. This only comes out for special occasions. I can't think of a better time to have a sip.
That is, yes. Yamazaki does not it does not grow on trees, and that is a very, for people listening and not watching, that is a heavy pour you have there of some delicious Yamazaki Japanese whiskey to celebrate the termination of Steelers offensive coordinator Matt Canada. You've been begging for 2 years for this to happen.
21, 24, and 28. That is the Steelers' offensive ranks under Mr. Matt Canada. Long overdue. This is not a Mike Tomlin decision. This is a Art Rooney decision, and it should have happened at the bye week. I was okay with this guy coming back based on how last year ended. I was okay with him coming back this year. He didn't deserve to come back, but I was okay for him to come back because, all right, we got something we can build off of. But 21, 24, and 28 is the offensive rankings that this guy put up with an offense that has stud wide receivers, stud running backs, and a rookie quarterback who you could not develop. And
you've had a strong tight end as well. I mean, you've been good at the tight end position as well with Freiermuth. I mean,
well, Freiermuth, and we just we picked up the kid from Georgia. Haven't used him whatsoever, except for in pass blocking. Dead last in red zone, so we can't even use him in the red zone because we don't even get to the red zone. Sunday was just a combination of everything gone wrong for the Steelers offense. Not that the Browns don't have a fantastic defense.
Sure.
Of course they do. But that defense is a little bit, in my opinion, overrated because what they do against good offenses is not great. What they do but they will kill a terrible defense.
Yep.
And the thing that stuck out to me so much this week was, number one, Kenny Pickett coming out and saying, we expected them to be in man defense, and they were in zone, so it kind of threw us off. So there was no adjustment. You have Najee Harris coming out and saying, they know when I'm in the game what they're going to do. They know they're going to hand the ball to me. They're in the backfield before I can even move.
Yeah.
And then you have Deontay Johnson coming out, posting on X. It's completely un-Steeler-like that these teams that they're coming out and saying all this stuff publicly, and it was just time for it to happen. Canada showed up to the facility today, not knowing that he was fired. He got told at the facility that you're being let go. So there was no doubt that this was, you can say whatever you want. This was an Art Rooney decision. This came from the top. Since 1941, the Steelers have not fired anyone in season. The last person that got fired at the time was part owner of the team, so he essentially fired himself. So this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented, and this is long overdue. This is it was just time. It was time 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. It was time.
Yeah.
The plays in this game. There was a time where the Steelers had the ball. I don't know exactly what it was. I want to say they were probably at maybe the 45-yard line of the Browns after Jaylen Warren rips off a 74-yard run, and we have a chance to get in the field goal range to essentially put the game away at that point. We decide that we're going to pass the ball twice, one being to Jaylen Warren on a swing pass that was completely blown up by 4 defensive players. So they all knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Just an absolute embarrassment. It's time to move on. Listen, I'm sure Matt Canada is a fantastic guy, great family man. From everything I've ever heard, not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's just not an NFL guy. He's just not an NFL head offensive coordinator, let alone coach. He's just not. His style was just not meant for the NFL. I mean, honestly, it really wasn't meant for college. The plays he was running literally was a high school offense. It
and so
was
how does he get in that position, though? How does Matt Canada get in the position to be the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers and stay there for a few seasons when everything that he runs is very predictable, it's an anemic offense with no adjustments and no changes made? How does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I
mean, this has to have been Tomlin just making a Tomlin decision, and then the Rooneys kind of going along with it, but then eventually, like you said, it's not even about impatient about winning. It's what we've been talking about for a few weeks now: losing the team, losing the locker room, wasting talent. That's what Tomlin's been doing. And I think the Rooneys had to step in and do something about this.
Mike Tomlin's offensive coordinator since Bruce Arians was Todd Haley, which a lot of people think that was a Art Rooney, the second decision. Some say it's Tomlin. Some say it was probably Art. Randy Finkner, and then Matt Canada. It has not been pretty, folks. It has not been pretty at all. And this could start to become an indictment on Mike Tomlin. I still love him as a coach, and we've talked about it. The minute the Steelers will let him go, there's minimally a dozen teams that are lined up to sign this guy and probably fire their coach to sign him. But sometimes that might be just a change of scenery that everyone needs.
Yeah.
Talked about it last week before. This is
it's a production business. I mean, that's what we know.
Production business, correct. Yeah. Correct. And this is we talked about, I'm losing my train of thought here because I'm just so excited. Head coach for Andy Reid. So we talked about Andy Reid being in Philadelphia for so long.
Yeah.
It didn't take Andy Reid long to find another job. No. And now he's thriving in that position. Yep. But it was time for Philadelphia to move on.
Think about Kyle Shanahan. Right? I mean, this is a guy who, when you see Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta and then what he's done in San Francisco, like it's not always that the coach forgets how to coach. It's just sometimes, you just need to go somewhere else and then you'll have success. Now, not always going to have success. Sometimes you're the same guy with the same problems no matter where you go. But we do see guys that, that have success. And you mentioned Andy Reid being obviously a great example of it. You know how to coach. I mean, Bill Belichick didn't forget how to coach. So, and again, would a lot of teams take a Bill Belichick as their head coach? Of course they would. Goes without saying.
Absolutely. There's a
So
lot of rumors that he could end up in Washington.
yes,
San Diego's been floated out there. But yes, glad he's gone. Now it's all on Kenny. I mean, don't bench Kenny. It's not time to bench Kenny Pickett.
yeah.
The Steelers are still 6-4, still well within playoff contention. Some people actually, there's a few of these predictors that actually have the Steelers now more inclined to make the playoffs this year after the loss, which I don't know, but so you're still well within it. But it's time for Kenny Pickett to step up. It's time to let this guy sink or swim. I was, and I texted this in our group chat that I'm positive that he was told after the first 4 weeks of the season when he had thrown the 4 picks, don't lose us the game.
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in a position to lose the game. We have a great defense. We're not, rankings wise, the defense isn't great, but they lead the league in takeaways. The Steelers as a whole, I think, are plus 10 or 11 in takeaways this year. Just don't lose the game. But that includes not throwing the ball over the middle of the field. The guy never throws the ball over the middle of the field, which is just insane when you have people like George Pickens and you've got Deontay Johnson and you've got Freiermuth. You've got all these guys that can go over the middle, and they just refuse.
And they're not afraid of contact. So many receivers we see in the NFL do not want contact. They just want to utilize speed and go upfield and run those out routes. But the reality is there are very few guys. Pickens is a guy that doesn't shy away from contact. Think about like an A.J. Brown in Philadelphia, right? One of the things that makes him so good is you can't predict where those routes are going to go because he will go across the middle. He will take contact if needed because he's a big physical wide receiver. If you will not go over the middle, you just took away a huge part of what the defense has to worry about. Because now they don't have to worry about that. You're not going to throw over the middle. So now we just know, okay, keep everything to the outside. Roll your safety coverage over there as needed. And your linebackers can play a little bit deeper. Najee can't run the ball very well, and you're not getting the push.
Yeah, and it's not even your linebackers playing deeper. The linebackers just come up onto the line of scrimmage. Right. And they're just busting through any gap that's open.
Yeah.
Because they know, obviously, they're not going to throw the ball over the middle. When Najee's in the game, they know the ball's probably going to be handed off to him, so they don't have to worry about that. Kenny Pickett is one of the top quarterbacks when it comes to play action, but he's the least play action quarterback in the NFL. Just make it make sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So we'll see. I mean, it's sink or swim time for him, and throw him into the deep end and let him sink or let him swim. Figure out these next 7 games, what you have in him. And if he lives up to the hype and he can become preseason Kenny Pickett, then you've got your quarterback. If not, this is a deep draft. There's going to be someone that's going to fall down there. A Michael Penix, the kid from LSU, whose name slips my mind.
Yeah.
There's plenty of quarterbacks in this draft that you can get. Make a run for Justin Fields. Make a run for Justin Herbert. Do whatever you got to do. Someone, threw out there on X today, would you give up TJ Watt if it meant getting Justin Herbert? Yeah.
Wow, that could be an interesting one, couldn't it?
I think, I think minimally it probably starts there to get someone like him. But, do whatever you got to do. I don't care. I mean, this is a quarterback league. You've got to have your quarterback. And if you don't have your quarterback, you can't, this isn't the Trent Dilfer of, 04 or whatever, this isn't that situation. The NFL isn't built like this anymore. It's built on quarterbacks, and you need to go get yours. If Kenny's it, awesome. But it's time to let this guy, let him make mistakes, let him go out there, sling the ball, whatever he's got to do. People were trashing on him. We're going to wrap this up, but they were trashing on him after the first half, and like, this guy sucks. And I'm like, he threw 8 passes the whole first half. He completed 5 of 8 passes. Yeah, 34 yards, but he completed 5 of his 8 passes. Patrick Mahomes will have 8 passes on one drive.
Right.
And he had it for the whole entire first half. Yeah. It can't happen. I'm sorry, it can't happen.
That's not an NFL offense. Like, that's not an NFL offense almost at any time, at any point in time.
No.
But certainly not today. Certainly not today. That is not a competent NFL offense to throw the ball 8 times and a half.
And then Jaylen Warren, leads, he led the NFL this week in rushing, and he did that on 9 carries. He had 7 carries, and then he ends up busting one for his 7th carry. He ends up busting for 74 yards, which is the longest touchdown Steelers have had since the Super Bowl, when Willie Parker ran, for the 75 yards.
Wow.
And he got 2 more carries after that. Inexcusable. So I'm happy. Sorry for Canada. He's still going to get his money this year, plus probably whatever's left on his contract. It was just time, and it was time 3-4 weeks ago. It was time. So
yeah,
good on them for finally making the decision and moving on. So happy.
Well, clearly, and we will move on here, because anyone who's listening, we've just gone almost 17 minutes on just talking about the Steelers firing Matt Canada, but it is a big deal. It is a big move, and it could possibly create some interesting implications, as the season continues to unfold, moving into really the second half of the season, where, things are still up for grabs. And particularly 100%. With the Chiefs losing to the Eagles on Monday Night Football, you have the Ravens as the top seed in the AFC right now, but you have a lot of people very bunched up. And when you start looking at the Browns, the Steelers, the Bills, you've got some teams that aren't traditionally good and some teams that are traditionally really good and, competing. And then you've got, of course, the Dolphins in there, and you've got some of these surprise teams that are going to pop up, like a Houston Texans or some of these other ones that, are going to come out of these divisions that you're not even seeing or thinking about very much. And then all of a sudden they kind of can, do some damage. Denver seemingly has kind of started to right the ship a little bit. And so, you don't know who's going to get streaky and who's not. So it could get really, really interesting as we continue to move forward. So with that having been said, we're not going to, do a deep dive at all into week 11, but I will just ask, anything jump out at you in week 11 that you want to discuss other than the firing of Matt Canada?
Yeah, that was the biggest one for me. It was, another great week of football. I mean, it really was. So I don't, go back through here. Jags right the ship, against the Titans. So it's really not, that big of a deal. That Lions comeback was pretty awesome. That was something there. Not that they should have been down, but they're now 8-2. The last time they were 8-2, I believe someone had mentioned that blacks were not allowed in white restaurants.
It was like 1961 or 62.
Yeah, how about that?
Something like that.
Yes. So awesome. Another one, and this. I said after this game that I thought Ron Rivera would be fired after losing to the Giants, which now 3 of the 2 of the 3 wins that the Giants have come now against the Commanders this year. Inexcusable. I'm assuming, they're just going to let him ride the season out. Again, I feel like what a perfect time to see what you have in Eric Bieniemy, but they may know what they have in Bieniemy. I mean, the way he's got Sam Howell playing, and the way he's adjusted his offense to suit him. Didn't have a great game this week, but the past 3 games, I mean, the dude was the best quarterback in the NFL. So maybe they already know what they have, and they're just going to let Ron, kind of have his swan song and let him go out. I'm not sure. I feel like, which kind of leads a little bit to the rumors that, the Commanders are in play for Bill Belichick. Because why else keep Ron Rivera around, knowing full well he's not going to be your coach, and knowing that you have a chance to see what you have in the enemy. But
hey, if you're
that's
going to
the only
have
thing
a
I
new
guess.
general manager and a new head coach, having a high draft pick is only that much more appealing because it's not a rebuild. A lot of people think that, Washington is just a terrible team and they need to, it's going to be a full rebuild. Honestly, it's not. Like, they have a ton of talent on that team, and they now have a little bit more of a stockpile of draft picks after the trades of Chase Young and Montez Sweat. And so, you look at what's there. If you have the quarterback, and it certainly appears that Sam Howell's going to be the guy. So if you have your quarterback for cheap for the next several years, right? We know the formula. And now you start being able to say, okay, we have a decent number of drafts and cap space upcoming. The table is set pretty well for the right general manager and right head coach to be able to come in and have success with the Commanders. So I wouldn't be surprised if, not only do we see changes there, but I think it could be pretty appealing for a lot of different candidates.
You have to wonder if that's not one of the, and it's weird to say for a Washington team, but you have to think that is got to be like, that has to be a really, really good scenario for any coach that wants to come in.
Yeah.
You have your quarterback. You presume you have your quarterback. You're going to get high draft picks. It's looking more and more like, last year when the Steelers traded Chase Claypool, ends up getting essentially a first round pick, and Joey Porter Jr., who's turned out to be really good. Didn't have a great game, this week against Amari Cooper, but still played fairly well. That looks like that pick from Montez Sweat is going to be another one of those, high or low 30 picks. I don't know that there's really it's got to look like one of the best places to go. New ownership, new stadium coming. It's a very attractive place, Washington, right now for a new coach.
Totally agree. Okay, so your three were Lions over the Bears, and then what was it? Jags over Titans, and then the Commanders and Ron Rivera still keeping his job.
Sure, and then of course Pittsburgh firing.
Yes, Matt Canada. Okay, so here's a few I'm going to throw out there. The Raiders had their first loss under new head coach Antonio Pierce, but may have ended up being a win for them. Because if you go back and look, okay, yeah, they were winning some games under Pierce's first two games, but they weren't exactly beating quality opponents. Now they're going up against the Miami Dolphins, who by all accounts are, a top team in the AFC. And they hung, and really the argument could be made that they should have won that game. But they hung minimally with the Dolphins the entire game. So when you lose 20-13, I don't think there needs to be like a false sense of confidence for the Raiders now. I think this is actually a good sign for them to understand as a litmus test of where exactly they are in the hierarchy. They're a scrappy team. They will try to punch you in the mouth. They do have some talent. They're not an upper echelon team right now. Nobody thought they were, but they're a competitive team now, and that's what they had been lacking previously. So I do think there's something to be said there.
Yeah, and defensively played a great game, which is, tough to do against that Miami offense. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one. Second, I do not understand how San Diego Chargers coach Brandon Staley still has a job. We've talked about this on this show before. I've been ranting about this for quite a while now. I was saying it last season. There is absolutely, positively no reason that Brandon Staley is still employed as head coach of the LA Chargers. It doesn't make sense. This is a guy who has failed in every conceivable way as a head coach. Each and every way that you can fail as a head coach, he has failed as a head coach. It doesn't make sense that you're going to continue to waste the talent that they have amassed on that team. Now, you also know I went on a rant a few weeks ago that Chargers general manager Tom Telesco has been able to stay under the radar and shouldn't. He should have a lot more heat on him. But there is some talent on that team. What would you want on the defensive side but to be able to have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack? Forget about anyone else. Just those two cornerstone defensive players for the Chargers. And then on the offensive side, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. If you knew nothing else, you don't know, look at another person on that roster. If you can name 2 or 3 all-pro players on offense and all-pro players on defense, you should have a good team. That's how it works. You do not need to have 52 amazing players. And yet, the Chargers are 4-6. 4-6, losing to bad teams. They lost to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are not a good team. They are also 4-6 after that win against the Chargers. This is a team you can't lose to, and you lose to them. And in case anyone was thinking, oh, well, that's just, bad luck or whatever. Let me tell you something. If you go back over the season and you look at who the Chargers have been losing to, I mean, here's the thing. The Chargers play close games. I'll give credit to that. They play close games. But situationally, they lose those close games. If you said, well, you know what, Brandon Staley, he's this defensive-minded head coach and everything else, so they play solid defense. Maybe, and they only lost to the Lions by 3, but they give up 41 points to the Lions. So what this is saying is, yes, you have these close plays, but when those close plays happen and those close games happen, the Chargers are always on the wrong side of it. You lost by 3 to the Lions. You put up 38 on them, but you gave up 41. Okay. You scored 20 against the Packers, but you gave up 23. Of course, you got blown out by the Chiefs, 31-17. And so, you look at this, lost to the Cowboys by 3, 20-17. Barely beat the Raiders, lost to the Titans by 3, 27-24. And so, these are not great teams that you're losing to. And Brandon Staley keeps coming out and saying, we're just a play or 2 away. We're a play or 2 away. We're close. We're just a play or 2 here or there. But the problem is, consistently, the other team is the one making the plays, and the Chargers are the ones giving up those plays. And the problem is, when a team is consistently down to a play or 2 away all the time, that's the difference in coaching. That's the difference. A good coach puts you on the right side. You won by a play or 2. If you're always losing by a play or 2, that is not the players. In my opinion, that is not the players. You cannot blame the players when you have a team that consistently is barely losing games. If you're consistently close but always finding a way to fall short, that is on coaching, because your players are not scheming up and figuring out how to get close but not be able to win. The same team that can put up 38 against the Detroit Lions but give up 41 can't also be the same offense that can only score 20 against the Packers, but also give up 23. It doesn't make sense. There's no inconsistency. There's no identity. And they had, who should have been, and still is really, I mean, for them, like, they had the chance to make the choice and the decision last year when they should have to get rid of Brandon Staley. Now they brought in Kellen Moore, clearly would be the head coach in waiting, but they're still not making the move. You're wasting another year of Justin Herbert, another year of Joey Bosa, who's now out with his high ankle sprain, and Khalil Mack and Keenan Allen, who does not have very many more years left in this league as a top tier receiver. The Chargers are just a disgusting team and organization to me. And the Chargers will not bring in Bill Belichick. And I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the history of the Chargers organization, the Spanos family that owns them, they have never brought in a top-tier, high-paid head coach. Who have they had? And I'm talking, go all the way back. Go back to Norv Turner. Go back through the history of Chargers coaches. When do you see a time that ownership has wanted to just turn the keys to the kingdom over to an all-powerful head coach like a Bill Belichick, or even a really strong general manager? They're a second-tier team. Honestly, God, they're like a fifth-tier team in their own city. So anyway, I will rant about this longer than you'll talk about Matt Canada if I'm allowed to, because I just find that is so disgusting that it borders on malpractice to allow this family, the Spanos, to continue to run the Chargers organization in the way that they are, and then keep these horrible people in these positions. And if I'm Kellen Moore, why would I have left Dallas to go here? I went here because I know full well there's a good chance I'm going to take over as the head coach, right? Why would I? It's a lateral move otherwise. Why would I want to be the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys and then go be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers? Wouldn't make sense, except I knew that there was a path to succession here. And if you're going to make this move, if you're the Chargers, make the daggone move. Get rid of Brandon Staley. I don't know. Did you see here very recently where he was getting really angry at the reporters? Did you see all that?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And you can start seeing it with Justin Herbert, too. He's getting to the point where he's like super frustrated. And I can't blame him. I mean, again, what are you doing there? They're now, as a team, collectively 1 game under 500. I mean, Herbert for his career is now 1 game under 500. Just shouldn't be a situation that this team, with a quarterback like Justin Herbert. I mean, honestly, you flip Phillip Rivers for Justin Herbert. So you've got your quarterback and you're still just consistently mediocre. I mean, It's one of those things we joke Chargers are going to Charger. And, that's exactly what they're doing. They're just being the Chargers. I guess at this point we shouldn't expect anything more from them. I definitely can't expect anything more from them because this is what they are. They're just an average team, and they shouldn't be. I mean, they really shouldn't be. So,
no. They've done the hard part. They've done the hard part. They've collected the really good players. They have them signed. They have it. That's the hard part.
Exactly. I mean, you fire Anthony Lynn to bring in Brandon Staley, and you're just getting the exact same results out of them. Yeah. So it's ridiculous. And this is why I think that someone like a Justin Herbert could be available at the right price. I mean, he could force his way out of there if he's really that frustrated with this team. He got paid. But there's a lot of teams that would take on that contract in a heartbeat. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Herbert contract is 5 years, $262.5 million. So it's just barely ahead of Lamar Jackson's deal with the Ravens. So, I mean, he's certainly a very highly paid quarterback. But if we look ahead to next year, Justin Herbert's cap hit is $19.3 million. 2025, it goes to $37.3 million. 2026, $46.3 million. 2027, $58.3 million. Now, assuming that he's healthy, who would have any problem paying Justin Herbert $58.3 million in 2027? Nobody's going to have any issue with that.
No, and they'll just restructure it anyway. So
2028 he goes to $71 million. So that's where the problem comes in. But if you could take that contract over, I mean, you're not even paying that guy a crazy amount of money right now if you look at his cap hit on a yearly basis. Now, the problem for the Chargers is the dead cap money. I mean, next year is almost $130 million in dead cap money. 2025 is $110 million. 2026, $73 million in dead cap. So it's tough from that perspective. But it's worth it if a team could make the move. Why not?
100%. Yep, and that gives the Chargers a chance to get out of that and start over again. Problem is we talked about it, like, you're then going to be out trying to find the next Justin Herbert when you have him. So I really don't think they're ever going to let him go. I mean, it's going to, but again, these players are way more vocal than they were, say, in Phillip Rivers' day. Yes. It's definitely more vocal and can definitely force their way out a lot easier than they used to be able to. Does he want to? I don't know. I mean, but he's definitely at his wit's end for sure. And I don't blame him.
No. I mean, and that's the whole thing is that, he has every right to feel that way. He should feel that way. In fact, it would be more concerning if Justin Herbert wasn't pissed off. If Justin Herbert wasn't angry and frustrated about what's happening in the organization with the Chargers, that would be more concerning. The fact that he is upset isn't at all concerning. That tells you that even though he's a very calm, even keeled guy and all of those types of things, that he's also got that fire in his belly to want to win and want to be successful and want to, be a champion. And he's not being given those tools and opportunities right now. So last thing I'm going to say is Monday Night Football, Eagles Chiefs. Did you learn anything from that game?
Yeah, what I said at the beginning of the season when we were doing our preseason picks. Thought the Chiefs would probably make it back to the Super Bowl, and I thought it would probably be with the Eagles. But what did I say? Who is going to catch the ball for that team outside of Travis Kelce? Yep. Apparently, no one can catch the ball outside of Travis Kelce. They're now lead the league in drops. Another 5 drops this week. It's really one of those things that, like, I don't know what the thought process was. Like, yeah, Mahomes is finding these guys. It's not like he's, not finding them, but they're literally just not catching the ball. Marquez Valdez Scantling, that's a touchdown. That's a game 100%. Right there. That wins them the game, and you can't catch it. I said, again in our chat today, Juju signed, Juju Smith-Schuster, and he's not ever going to take the top off. But what he is going to do is catch the ball. If you go back to his time with Pittsburgh with Ben on third down plays, I knew it was going to Juju because he's going to find the first down marker and he's going to catch the ball. Yeah. He leaves to go to New England for $11 million a year. Are you telling me that they couldn't have offered him $9.5 million to stay, and he wouldn't have done that? Of course he would have, to play with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
of course he would have. So
it seems like they had Andy Reid or Mac Jones. I mean, come on.
It seems like they had no even interest in re-signing him, and I think it's showing at this point. I mean, what do you do to fix it? I don't know. I'm not sure, but 5 drop passes is pretty insane. And then did you see at the very end of the game when Mahomes was running off the field and he threw like his gloves to like a Kansas City fan and they dropped it? Like one more drop.
Yeah, nobody can catch anything being thrown by Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, maybe it's his fault. I don't know. Maybe it's the way he puts the spin on the ball. I don't know. But that's got to be a concern, man. It has to be a concern. Travis Kelce has already said, like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to play. Yep. Like, I heard all the time, 15 surgeries, like, that takes a toll, That helps that he's got a $1 billion girlfriend. But, sure. It's there's got to be life beyond a tight end. Revolving your whole offense around the tight end is a pretty bold move, and it works. Obviously, I mean they're coming off a Super Bowl win, so it's not like it's not anything that's not working. But at some point, you have to have these other guys step up. So I don't know what else Mahomes can do. I don't know what else they can do in that offense. If he's putting it in the right place and you're just dropping the ball, man, that's a tough go. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it was a great game and it was what we probably expected it to be. And again, I still probably think that this is your Super Bowl, your Super Bowl matchup for this year. But this really should put a lot of doubt into Kansas City's mind. I would think, anyways.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I won't spend too much time on this because we want to, get through some other things. But I think sometimes a loss is a good thing. And Kansas City, after having several years now of great success and always having that other gear, always being able to turn it on, always being able to rely on Patrick Mahomes to just make some miracle play, do some crazy thing, find some way to be able to win a game and pull it out. It's good to not let that happen sometimes. It's good to fail sometimes, because when that happens, it's a wake-up call for the rest of the team. And you'd rather have these types of losses in week 11 than in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, right? So I do think that this is a little bit of a wake-up call. Now, the reality is I did learn a little something from this game. And it is, in many ways, the Chiefs are still really good because they played a horrible game and still should have won that game against the Eagles. And when you have that as a fact in the back of your mind, you go, dang, they couldn't have done much worse in the second half. And yet, even as bad as they were in the second half, if it weren't for dropped balls, they win that game. No big deal. Like they have the game won. And so when you have that situation, that makes you feel a little bit better about it. And I'm trying to find, I had a stat for you. Yeah. Fewest second half points scored in the NFL over the last 4 weeks. The Panthers with 29, the Raiders with 23, the Rams with 21, the Colts with 17, the Patriots with 16, the Jets with 9, the Chiefs with 0. Now, one of those things is not like the others because every other team on that list is a bad football team. Panthers, Raiders, Rams, Colts, Patriots, Jets. Which one of those is going anywhere this year?
Right.
And then the Chiefs. And the Chiefs being the worst. 0 second half points in 4 weeks of football. Now, the other thing is that's not going to last forever, right? Like that streak is weird. It's a very strange anomaly. It needs to be fixed. I believe that they will fix it. It shows that they're really good on script and really bad at making adjustments right now, which isn't maybe a total shock when you just lost your offensive coordinator. Like that's something to be conscious of. But the reality is that's a major, major impact to this team. They're not scoring second half points. But that streak would have easily been broken last night if any of the Chiefs receivers were born with human hands. Like they would have had like opposable thumbs. The Chiefs win that game. And exactly. that's the whole thing you got to look at is, was it a loss for the Chiefs? Yes. It's not an embarrassing loss. It's an incredibly close game against the Eagles who went to the Super Bowl last year. So I don't see that as a horrible loss, but it's still a game they should have won. And the fact that they didn't does it's cause for concern, but it does tell me that the Chiefs are still pretty well on pace for where they need to be.
I think so too. So this is going to lead me into my stat of the week, and I saw this online, and I was going to throw this at you, a comparison. I'm going to have you compare these two quarterbacks. This is this year.
Okay.
The first person has 2,497 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 9 picks. The other quarterback has 2,331 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 10 picks.
Whew.
One of these guys is an MVP favorite, and another one, they're ready to run out of town.
Wow. All right, who you got?
The first one is Jalen Hurts, and the second one is Jordan Love.
Well, perspective really is everything, isn't it?
It truly is.
And yeah, I mean, the context is so crazy to think about that. That is really interesting because you're saying Jordan. Now, of course, obviously, that's not taken into consideration rushing touchdowns, rushing yards, all that kind of stuff for Jalen Hurts. I'm assuming, but
it's not. But even
from
the
just
rushing,
straight passing the ball,
right? Even the passing yards or rushing yards isn't like something that's insane, like where it's like he's head and shoulders above him.
I just think Hurts has like probably 8 or 9 rushing touchdowns, and so I'm guessing the total touchdowns get juiced because of that. I doubt Jordan Love has that, but no, man. I mean, that's a huge. You're right. That's really interesting to look at because yeah. I mean, it's context, right? It's all just looking at the context of the situation and saying, wow, why is it that one guy is thought of as being great with this, and then the other guy is being hated for this?
That's exactly it. And one of them has AJ Brown and Devontae Smith,
right,
and the other one doesn't.
Yep, that's a great point. Great point.
So the Eagles, in my opinion, are winning some really weird games. I don't feel like either team has really hit their stride. And it's just amazing how good they are without hitting that, without hitting that stride. So Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting stat. That they're really not that far off, but
No.
you know,
So imagine if Jordan Love had AJ Brown on his team, or I
yeah,
don't know, Devontae Adams.
sure, sure, yeah,
It could be something.
weird, yeah, weird
Yeah.
how that works.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Interesting. Interesting. All right. So we got plenty more things to get through, but I got a couple really quick stats for you I thought would be good. The Giants have 4 first half touchdowns for the entire year. Only 4. Every one of those 4 has come against the Washington Commanders.
again,
Every
again.
single.
How does this man still have a job, Ron? I don't understand, but
Ron
here we are.
Rivera he's either sleeping super well at night because he knows exactly what's going to happen and he's just at peace with it, or he gets no sleep. But my guess is he knows and he's just passing the time. So there's that, and then you're touching on the Commanders here. Sam Howell, Commanders quarterback Sam Howell, is the only quarterback in NFL history to have all of the following stats through 11 games: 2,900 passing yards, 200 rushing yards, and 65% completion percentage or higher. He's the only quarterback in history to have those stats through 11 games.
That's crazy. He's playing out of his mind, and right
Yeah.
now is the best quarterback in that draft, and he was a 5th rounder, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, and then the other thing you got to look at is, again, and we talked about this before the season, the impact of Eric Bieniemy on Sam Howell. And we can go back to videos and stuff where we're talking about if we see Sam Howell make leaps and bounds improvement under Eric Bieniemy, then we know that it's truly Bieniemy. That it's not just a matter of saying, oh, well, Bieniemy got lucky because he was under Andy Reid. He wasn't really making that type of an impact. Because what's happened? Every week since he's been gone this year, we've talked about Kansas City doesn't look like themselves. They're struggling. They're not scoring points the same way. They're not as good of an offense. And then on the flip side, we're saying Sam Howell's almost an MVP candidate. This guy's playing out of his mind. It's incredible. He's putting up points and making throws we've never seen before. What's the common denominator? It's Eric Bieniemy. So we got to look at that. And look, I know new ownership is always going to want to make a splashy hire as a head coach. I totally get that. You never promote your offensive coordinator to the head coach when you're a new owner because he wasn't your pick to begin with. You want a fresh, brand new, big time, big name head coach. And again, Bill Belichick is who's rumored to go to Washington. But I will say Eric Bieniemy has earned a shot there. And if he doesn't get it there, he's definitely earned it somewhere else. Absolutely.
100%. About it. 100%. Yeah, I think it took him a few weeks to get going and to figure out, the strengths and everything. But absolutely, Bieniemy deserves the chance to be a head coach right now. I think what he's done with Sam Howell is nothing short of amazing.
Yeah. All right, so really, really, really quickly, let's just look ahead to this week in the NFL, Week 12. Not going to go through the individual games, just want to see if anything jumps out at you. I've got a few that jump out to me if you want me to go first.
Well, it's going to be curious to see what Pittsburgh does this week against Cincinnati, of course. I'll be very curious. Big game, 49ers and Seahawks. That's going to be a very big game. That is going to see who's going to control the division there. Jags and Texans. That's going to be a fun game. I think that'll be a good one. Get a Black Friday game this week.
Yeah,
very very odd, but it's a 3 p.m. start on Prime. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be a fun week of football. Not to be understated, Saints Falcons. That's going to be that also can figure out who's going to control the division there. So there's a lot of really good division games coming up this week. So now we're looking at New Orleans leading the NFC South at 5-5. I feel like every year that division wins with a sub 500 record. But they win. Atlanta pulls this one out. They're going to be leading the division. I'm assuming Taylor Heineke's probably. I don't know if he's going to start because I think he had gotten injured last game.
I heard Ritter's starting this week.
Ritter's going to start, so we'll see there. So yeah, a lot of good division games coming up this week. So it should be a fun week of football, I think.
Yeah, a couple games that jump out at me, not necessarily that I care about watching, but I do think are impactful games. Browns Broncos could actually be a much better game. Battle of the Orange could be a lot closer and better game than people on paper would traditionally want to give that credit to. You look at that game, Broncos are playing way better football right now. Browns, obviously, no Deshaun Watson. Dorian Thompson Robinson, DTR is going to be playing quarterback. Look, I mean that's a game that it'll be a good test for both teams really, but specifically for the Broncos to say what can they do to overcome some things and keep on the momentum that they have. Another team playing for their life, Bills playing the Eagles. That's going to be an impactful game. Eagles are going to be on a short week, coming off of the Monday Night Football game against the Chiefs. So that Bills Eagles. Now this is a 4:30 game, so a little bit of extra time, but Bills need that win badly to be able to have a hope and keeping their season going. So that's going to be a big one. And honestly, Ravens Chargers. Look, it shouldn't be that great of a game. I'm just curious, since I just had this rant about Brandon Staley. Could that be the game that Kellen Moore ends up taking over after? If the Chargers get beat again and they lose to the Ravens, could that be the time where it's finally time to make the move? Brandon Staley's out, Kellen Moore takes over. Something to watch.
Yeah, I think I could be it, especially if it's a bad beat. If it's
Yeah.
a close game, who knows? But at that point, the Chargers are going to drop to 4-7. They're not going to be playoff contenders at that. I don't.
Yeah.
9-7's probably not going to get you into the playoffs this year, and
It's gonna be hard
in the AFC. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's all we have on NFL. Anything you wanted to touch on before? I got a couple other things I just want to hit on for fairly brief discussions, but just want to make sure.
No, I mean, you got Patriots, Giants. If I'm the Patriots, I think Bill Belichick said for all three quarterbacks to be prepared to play. There's a lot of implications there for draft picks. I mean, no one's really pegging the Patriots as a chance to get a top 2-3 pick, but if they keep losing, they're going to be right there,
Absolutely.
ready to do that. And then that begs the question, does that keep Bill Belichick around? Because he now has a chance to get a Drake May. I'm not sure they'll get the first pick. And if they do they even want Caleb Williams? But, you get a chance to draft a quarterback that high, which hasn't happened in the Bill Belichick regime. That could be interesting. So,
Yeah. No, you're right. I agree with that. That could be an interesting thing. Okay, so moving on, had a couple things I wanted to touch on. This is more on the business side of things, but it's going to be very, very interesting. So the UFC is currently facing a class action lawsuit. And through that lawsuit, they had to have discovery and release a certain amount of information. And some of the documents they put out give us insight into how much the fighters in UFC make. And so we looked at the UFC revenue split versus other leagues. So the NBA splits and takes 51% of the money the players get, the other 49. NHL's 50-50 split. NFL, 48%. Major League Baseball, 45% split. The UFC, anywhere from 13 to 14.5%. So the UFC is keeping over 75%. And actually a lot more than that, honestly. I mean, we're talking over 80, 85% of the money from fights that they put on. So as a profitable promotion, when the UFC got bought out a few years ago, I mean, man, it really makes all the sense in the world when you look at just from a pure profit perspective, the fact that they are holding 85+% of the money, that's incredible. It's incredible that they could be that profitable in comparison to other major sports.
Yeah, and I don't think Dana White makes any bones about it. Like, go to a different a different outfit, if you want. But our boy Joe Pompliano, wrote this article up, and he actually said UFC did 1.14 billion in 2022 revenue, and they made $387 million in profit. So they've got about 34% margins right there. And for these guys to be getting that little, that is crazy. But I
Yeah.
mean, I guess what other promotion are you going to go to? PFL.
Right.
I don't. Are they going to do that? That's
I
tough,
mean, look,
man.
Francis Ngannou moved on, like he's gone elsewhere, and now he's doing boxing and he's doing PFL and different. So, but he's also he makes a big percentage. He makes a percentage of the purse at PFL that's very significant in comparison to what he's making at UFC. UFC was sold. So this I'm looking at a date here on exactly, but they were sold in 2016 for $4 billion. $4 billion. And when you look now, and you said that they made 1 point something billion last year alone.
1.14. Yep.
Yeah. So they're doing over $1 billion a year in business. They were sold at that time in 2016. It was unprecedented for $4 billion. Looks like a pretty daggone good deal now when they're doing over $1 billion a year in revenue
Yeah.
and 300 and some odd million dollars in profit. I mean, that's a very, very good deal. And it does not seem to be going anywhere. And so then that was in 2016, right? Then we know that Endeavor agreed more recently in 2021 to acquire full control of the UFC. They were previously owning 50%. And so they raised the other 50% was 1.75 billion. And so Endeavor closed the deal to control 51% back in 2016. They're the ones that did the 4 billion. And then now they bought out the rest of it. Well, of course they would have, right? Like who would not have wanted to do that? I mean, it's such a good deal. Here's an interesting stat. 6 different people founded the UFC in 1993, including the legendary Rorion Gracie. The company struggled in its early years and was bought by the Fertitta brothers in January of 2001 for $2 million. They turned their $2 million into $4 billion when it got sold in 2016.
That's crazy.
2 million to 4 billion, man. I mean, that is hard to beat.
Yeah, you remember some of those old UFC fights too, man. There was like no weight class.
Yeah.
It was like
it's like a circus.
Yeah, it was a literal circus. Yeah, you had guys that were 150, 200 pounds heavier fighting guys. I mean, yeah, just outlawed, it was like banned in all these places.
Yeah.
And then they come in and kind of make it legit. And, here's where it is. Now, I don't know. I mean, do you think, so it's a class action lawsuit, but what, I mean, is that going to force them to give up more profits? I don't know.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
They just have to show the numbers. So now we know the numbers. I think there's always been speculation around what those numbers are. But I mean, even if you think of boxing, right? So boxing is probably the closest to the UFC as it pertains to just being a one-on-one sport versus a team sport. In boxing, headliners in boxing get about a 70-30 split. The PGA pays out over 50% to its golfers. But boxing, when you look at that, a 70-30 split. And in the UFC, it's 85-15. I mean, that's a big difference.
It is. I'd be curious to see if they ever up it or what they do. I mean, again, what are these guys? I guess. I mean, do you really want to go box? I mean, Ngannou made his money, and now he's got part ownership in PFL. So I mean, it's not like everyone's going to get part ownership in this. So how much choice do these fighters have? Do you want to be on the UFC or do you want to fight for the PFL?
Well, they gotta, it's someone with deep pockets and, look, I'm just going to throw this out there. Do not rule out the idea of the Saudis getting involved in mixed martial arts and doing the same thing that they did with Live Golf, which is put a ton of money in to pull the best fighters over and make the UFC sweat just like they did the PGA. And then eventually the UFC has certain decisions to make. And that is either buy up these other promotions or just hope that you can continue to compete with them, but you're losing, a lot of your stars. It's the perfect time to get in if you're the Saudis and you're getting in for a low dollar amount of money comparatively to trying to compete with the NFL or, some of these other crazy sports, right? I think that could be a really, really interesting spot for Saudi money to go. mixed martial arts could be, and very impactful, because it, just like golf, there's only one competitor, right? It's just the PGA that you need to target. It's only really the UFC that you need to target, but no one else has really been able to do it with deep pockets. You have Bellator and some of these others, but no one else has ever really been able to hit them where they hurt. But if you had Saudi money involved pulling these fighters over, that could be the thing that would force UFC's hand to change some things.
Yeah, and I honestly think it would be a lot easier for the Saudis to get into something like that, because all the stuff is stream pay-per-view. So, you're not, it's not, nobody is like necessarily like, oh, promotion based. Like, I only watch UFC.
Right.
They're going to go where the fighters are. So that it seems like it would be a lot easier for the Saudis to get into something like this and have it on pay-per-view. I mean, yeah, makes brilliant sense, to be honest.
Yeah.
More so than starting their own golf league and having it on the CW. But listen, they still made out great. Don't get me wrong.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked great. And in fact, I believe, the PGA, when they merged with Live still essentially owns the PGA at this point. So, I mean, they did great. They mission accomplished.
Yep.
And with this, I mean, you wouldn't even really be trying to merge with the UFC. You literally would just be taking over. If you can get the best fighters, John Jones is going to go over there and fight. Well, people are going to follow the fighters. They're not necessarily going to follow, as long as multiple go, and this is the thing with Ngannou going over to PFL, is the competition isn't necessarily there, or at least not the guys of. But when you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 guys going for, over, to a Saudi league, and now you're going to get way more eyes, because like, oh, we can still get these matchups. We can still get these fights that we want to see. The Saudis don't care if they lose money. I mean, they're probably just trying to figure a way to spend the money. So I know I think a show you can invest in. Yeah. If you're looking to spend money, I got a show you can invest.
It could be really interesting. I think it could be very interesting to see if the Saudis try to do that.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Crazy opportunity there. So we'll see what happens with it, but I do think that's something to look at. So we are over time already. So anything you want to touch on before we wrap this sucker up? I've got one more fascinating little story, and then I think we'll be good to go. But anything you want to touch on?
Nope, we're good.
No one last sip of whiskey in fond memory of Matt Canada?
Here's to you, Matt.
Fare thee well. Godspeed, Matt Canada. Okay. So I thought this one was pretty interesting, since we're talking about fighting and boxing and UFC, mixed martial arts. A little bit of history for you. On April 6th, 1893, Andy Bowen and Jack Burke fought the longest gloved boxing match in history at the Olympic Club in New Orleans, Louisiana. The fight lasted 7 hours and 19 minutes over 110 rounds. Can you even imagine? How do you fight for 7 hours? I don't even know how it's possible to do it. I mean, the exhaustion that you would have to go through is just insane.
That is nuts. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine?
8,500 people. 8,500 people went there to watch that fight. Jeez. Little did they know they'd be stuck there for over 7 hours.
Like, man, I got to get to work.
So here's what's really interesting with it. So it went 110 rounds, spanning over 7 hours, with each round lasting 3 minutes. The fight went on so long that some spectators fell asleep in their seats. By the 108th round, with no apparent victor, referee John Duffy decided that if there was no winner in the next 2 rounds, the fight would be declared a no contest. After 2 more exhausting rounds, the fighters were unable to emerge from their corners. Duffy ultimately declared the match a no contest. Jack Burke had broken all the bones in both of his hands, which left him bedridden for 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh. So did they,
and they're still fighting, they were still fighting.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of that, 110 round boxing match, ends in a no contest.
I hope they
doesn't
split
seem
the purse. Jeez.
Yeah.
They were like, well, since no one won, no one gets the $2,500 purse. So
That's right. I mean, one thing's for sure: the 8,500 people that went to watch definitely got their money's worth. I mean, you got there. You're like, okay, let's see. This is going to be a good match. 7.5 hours later, you're like, come on, man! Like, I couldn't possibly care less. I'll pay you to let me leave.
You know, after like round 80, you'd be like, I guarantee someone's going to win this round. You know,
That's right. Yeah.
Jeez.
They can't keep going like this. I mean, the one guy has all the bones in his hands broken. They can't keep doing this.
Oh gosh, that is awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's why they sanction these things now, right? I mean, geez,
Yes.
so we don't have 110 round matches. I mean, these guys probably would have died from exhaustion.
Yes. Yes. I mean, if you've ever done any boxing, literally throwing hands, just hitting a heavy bag for a couple of minutes is exhausting. If you're really hitting it with any speed and any ferocity, a couple of minutes, 7+ hours and 110 rounds. I mean, I'd be bedridden for 6 weeks, even if I had no broken bones, just from straight up exhaustion. I would need an
100%.
IV 6 times a day. I mean, it's going to take a long time to recover from.
Yeah, I got for one of my workouts. Sometimes I'll do the Oculus, and they have boxing on there.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I'm exhausted after
Yes.
3 rounds of punching an imaginary person. So
That's
I
right.
couldn't imagine punching a real person. How
Yeah.
tiring that is. Jeez.
Yeah, because you're just swinging. You're not also taking punches and blocking
Right.
and absorbing the
Exactly.
blows and doing all the ducking. And I mean, it's a lot, man. Yeah, I mean, I like boxing. I've done some boxing. I have a heavy bag, in my house. It's a workout, man. It is a major workout. And I can't imagine doing it for 7 hours straight, nor would I want to. I don't know
Yeah.
how you could.
I'd-
And also,
Well, I
though,
mean-
I will say this, salute to those guys, because each of them just kept on fighting. It wasn't like, man, I'm tired. I can't keep going. Like nowadays,
Yeah.
nobody's doing that. They're throwing
No.
in the towel. Their corners throwing in the towel. Then they're going to go and tweet about how, it was rigged or whatever. These dudes just kept coming
Yeah.
until finally they were just like dead, basically. And the ref declared it a no contest.
That's
But
it. I mean, the purse was $2,500, and that was in 1893. Like that has to be like an insane amount of money for this day and age. I mean, I would have to look it up, but I'm guessing it's got to be, I don't know, $100,000, $200,000 this day and age. I would imagine somewhere in that neighborhood.
I have to
So-
think, right? I mean, they're saying here, and I'm looking it up really quickly. Let's see, spent on a purchase. So $2,500 in 1893 depends on how you got it. But roughly, if you were spending on buying something, it would be about $88,000 in buying power. But if you received it as compensation, it would be worth about $662,000 today.
There you go.
Crazy.
So that's a lot of
Crazy.
money, I guess. I guess
Yeah.
that's why you're out there.
Yeah, I guess
110
so.
rounds going,
Ready
so.
to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, the calculator I see here, $2,500 in 1893 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $85,464 today. Then they just talk about the inflation rate, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean that would make a massive, massive difference for you, to be able to have that money. So, yeah, guys were willing to go all out for it. So, anyway, we'll end the show on that. Just thought that was an interesting little history story there. So, and with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this sucker up. We will cruise into Thanksgiving. We certainly hope everybody has an awesome Thanksgiving with friends and family and is able to enjoy themselves, be safe out there. And we will be talking with you next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
I don't know why the music's not playing. You know what? We're gonna keep this on the show. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna edit this out. I'm gonna keep this on, but it will not play. So I'll play the intro music. See if that works. Okay, nothing's working. So now we will just end the
Perfect.
show, I guess. We're just going to
All
go ahead and
right.
wrap this sucker up. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye, everyone.